Today we're going to do a little bit of a different video. I'm going to talk to you guys about the one thing I did to completely change my life. It's not some crazy hack that I had to apply. It was this small shift that I made, and I didn't realize it was going to change my life, but it did. So let's get into it. If you're new here, by the way, I'm Erin. Please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you. I basically post videos that are like a woman's guide through life, videos that are basically centered around what I would want to tell my younger self, and maybe they apply for things that you would also like to tell your younger self, or you could just relate to, or lessons that I've learned, things like that. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much. I love you. The AC is going to be kicking on and off, so if that's annoying you, I'm very sorry, and I hope that it just isn't that loud on camera. Let's just get into the video. The one thing that I did that really changed my life completely was loving myself. And that sounds so easy, and it sounds like something that's like always taught. Like you're always told, oh, you should just love yourself. If you know anything about the law of attraction, it's like love yourself and then everything will be drawn to you, or become love and you'll find love, and all of those things. You can hear all of these pretty things, or even when you hear like basic relationship advice of just like you can't love someone if you don't love yourself. But it really does make a complete difference, because when you love yourself, you start living for yourself. And what I mean by that is, in our day-to-day lives, we are so conditioned to live for other people, whether it's our parents, whether it's our teachers, whether it's religion, or the career that we've chosen, or the lifestyle that we think we're supposed to have because either our parents were immigrants, or because we see what this person's doing on Instagram. There's just so many ways that we're conditioned to live for other people. But when you start to love yourself, you'll start to actually just do things for you. The choices and the decisions that you make are all centered around making yourself happy, and your life will flourish because of it. One of the ways that I did this was I started to change the intention behind all of my self-development practices. So I was going to therapy, I was reading all of these like self-development books, I was learning as much as I could, I was going on YouTube all the time, I was journaling, I was doing all of the things to try and up-level who I was. And I think at the beginning I was doing it out of a place of not feeling like I was enough. I was doing it out of a place of like wanting to just be better so that I would be loved, and so that I would get the life that I want, and so that I would just be enough. And once I made the slight shift to, I say slight, it's not a slight shift as in like, it's not a big deal. I mean slight as in, it's just like this small intention that you make and it completely changes everything. But I just made a small shift to start doing all of those same things that I've been doing, but with the intention of loving myself. So going to therapy because I love myself. Journaling because I love myself, learning about spirituality and self-development because I love myself, and doing all of that stuff from a place of love, one, boosted my desire to do those things and deepened my practice so much more, and also just made the output so much better because I was doing it from a place of love. So that was one of the things that I did that really shifted the way that I was going about just like my improvement. And if you're watching this video, you're most likely someone that's also wanting to better themselves, that is consuming this like Wizard the Liz content and Lynette Adkins and Leora Alexandra, and you're trying to, listen to all the podcasts and do all of the things to become better. And while that is amazing and I applaud you for it, make sure you're doing it because you love yourself, and because you deserve to have everything you want, and you deserve to feel like your best self, and you deserve to love yourself as much as you possibly can. And not because you want to be better for other people, or you want to be good enough so that other people will love you, or that you will love you. You have to love yourself first. And I think it's interesting. I don't know if it was a book I was reading or a podcast, but someone was talking about how love is not a feeling all the time. Love is a practice, and love is something that you are just doing regardless of the feeling. And that applies to romantic relationships, or family, or when you have kids, or a business. But it also applies to self-love, because you're not always going to feel like you are the baddest bitch, or like you look the best, or that you feel the best, or that you're doing the best, or that you're like making the best things. Sometimes you're going to feel down, but in those moments, that's when you have to really tap into the practice of it. You have to still be loving yourself through practice and not just a feeling. It kind of goes back to the whole idea of motivation versus discipline, and doing things through discipline when you don't have the motivation. In this case, motivation would be the feeling of loving yourself, and discipline would be the practice of loving yourself. So when that feeling or when that motivation isn't there, that's when you tap into the discipline or the practice. Another thing I wanted to mention in this video was that there were some mental blocks that I really had to work through when it came to making the switch to loving myself. And one of the main ones that I found myself constantly going back to, and still can sometimes catch myself going back to now, is feeling like you're not supposed to love yourself, feeling like it's egotistical or arrogant, or like you're full of yourself, or like shameful for actually loving yourself. And that's something that's so programmed within us, and there's a reason for it, right? Like, if we are all loving ourselves, we're not going to be looking towards plastic surgery or like improvement in certain ways, or like makeup or lash extensions, or like what else is there, clothes, trends, social media, like so many things that we consume, myself included, as you can see with my lash extensions and my nails and my jewelry and me making a YouTube video. But if we all really, really, really loved ourselves, we wouldn't be as controlled in an addictive way towards those things. And so in order to control us, we have been taught that loving ourselves is shameful. And in order to kind of make us easier to be consumers and make us easier to, apply to the rules of society, we have been kind of conditioned that we are not enough. And unfortunately, we decide to then live out experiences and create experiences for ourselves that continuously remind us of that, because of this early on acceptance of not being enough. And so one of the things I really had to work through was being okay with loving myself and being confident and comfortable and happy that I love myself and not feeling guilty for it. And it's interesting because I think when you think of someone that really loves themselves, you picture them being selfish, or you picture them being like someone that just doesn't care about anybody else, that is just only caring about themselves, that doesn't do anything for anyone else, that doesn't love other people, that holds themselves to a pedestal that's much higher than everyone else and thinks they're just above every single other person. And once you find true love for yourself, it's actually the complete opposite, because you start to see that essence that's within you, within every single person, and you start to wish that love that you have for yourself for every single person, and you have more love to give because you're filling up your cup. So if you have limiting beliefs on loving yourself, maybe just sit down with a journal and write down, what are 3 things I think about someone who truly loves themselves? And there's no judgment there. Like, genuinely just write the 3 things that come to mind. It may be that, they're full of themselves, or that, they think they're that great, but they aren't, or like whatever it is, just write it so that you can at least become aware of it. And once you become aware of it, then you can start to recondition those things. I think it's important to also note that a lot of the times when we have these negative beliefs, or we have self-talk that is harming us, we want to like figure out absolutely everything, figure out the root of it, figure out where the issue is, figure out the exact belief that is causing all of these problems. So for example, in this, I felt shameful for loving myself, or I felt like it was bad to love yourself. I felt a desire to figure out that exact belief that was wrong, but that's not always necessary. Sometimes you can just acknowledge that you're feeling shameful towards something, and you don't need to pry super deep to figure out what the issue is, and go to therapy to figure out what the issue is, and do the shadow work to figure out what the issue is. If you're someone that works really well with that, and that finds it good to like kind of go back to the start to be able to heal something, then that will work for you. But you can also just decide to change going forward. And that's where I would say affirmations come in. So instead of deciding that you need to figure out the root problem, just start to affirm the things that you would like to believe instead. You don't need to go back and learn all of the negative stuff that you've adapted and been conditioned to believe. You can just decide what will be serving you. So for example, in this situation, I could decide loving myself helps me to love others. And that can just be a belief that I start to condition within myself. Or as I love myself, I begin to love others more. Or, like loving myself is loving God. And like just starting to really condition the beliefs within myself that I want to believe and that I know are within truth, instead of having to go back and like rewire the past stuff. I feel like I'm talking a lot with my hands. I'm like this to you. Those are a few of the topics that I wanted to talk about. And it's really interesting because the ways that like my life just completely changed after I started to love myself. And I don't mean like I changed countries and I sold all of my belongings and like my physical world completely changed, but my life and the way that I feel within it did change. Like the way that I go about my day, the way that I live my life, the way that I treat myself, the way that I talk to myself, the way that I interact with other people. It's interesting because you'll notice you'll start to get compliments all the time on like either your energy or on how you're showing up for people, and you'll start to just be a better human being to the people around you and to yourself. And through doing that, your life will just naturally improve because you're deserving of it. You're matching the vibration of something super high of love. And so naturally you begin to attract love, and you get to give love, and you get to attract love. And we live in a world that is equal give and take within karma, within polarity, within just the balance of the universe. If you throw something, it's going to fall. Same with love. If you give yourself love, you have more love to give. You also have more love to receive, and back and forth. And just as I'm finishing this video, the AC cuts off. But that's all I have to say today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I love you. Bye.